Early CGI will always look like the future to me. This was the future I grew up with, the future of my childhood, and it's hard to imagine a bigger jump aesthetically than the one from 2D to 3D. This was truly a brave new world, not only in how it looked, but how it was made and what it meant conceptually. The 1990s saw a convergence of art, ideas, and technology that promised a connected and stable future. It is a great future to remember, and that is what we are going to be doing today on the Videocast. We will be looking at how we got there, the aesthetics and philosophies of that future, as well as some incredible examples of virtual worlds. As always, I am your host Brian, and before we get into it, this and every video on this channel was made possible thanks to our patrons over at patreon.com/pixandportraits. In exchange for their support, patrons get access to my book, The Nostalgia Economy, and dozens of exclusive videos like feature film, looking at the future of movies, immoral media, media profiles, nostalgia mixes. $5 a month gets you access to all this. You can also become a member here on YouTube and get access to the audiobook for just $1, or give us super thanks. Everything helps keep us going, so if you have the means, please consider supporting us. Now, we're going to be starting in the 1960s because there is a lot of overlap between the two decades and even their futures. Longtime viewers have heard me say this a lot, but retrofuturism is not about the future, it's about the past, and the future from the 1960s, at least in America, was largely bright. This was the space age, comfortable, convenient, the world of tomorrow was just the push of a button away. So was the end of the world. Since the end of the Second World War, atomic energy promised all these amazing advancements in electricity and medicine, but this progress was hampered by the bomb and the ever-present threat of total annihilation. The 1960s also saw some of the earliest examples of computer animation. John Whitney's amazing catalog, created in 1961 on an analog computer. He apparently purchased a World War II era anti-aircraft control system in a surplus shop and converted it or reprogrammed it so that it could control several light bulbs. These could be programmed to move in various patterns, and when film was exposed to these, the images you are seeing here were created. Bell Labs, Ken Knowlton, who programmed the Bellflix programming language, which was used in his collaborations with Stan Vanderbeek and Lillian Schwartz. These are abstract, given the technical limitations of the time, but as time passed and technology advanced more and more, computer-generated animation, the programmers and artists were able to create more recognizable images. Still limited, but shapes began resembling real objects and even people. Over the decades, between the 1960s and 1990s, the computer became more and more ingrained in our lives. They became smaller and easier to use, more affordable and accessible. We brought them into our homes, and they brought us into the world. Connected networks of computers, the internet, had existed for years, but in the early 90s, the internet became publicly available, connecting people all over the world, truly ushering in a new era of communication, the information age. So many of the dreamt innovations of the past, science fiction, were quickly becoming reality, or thought to be just around the corner. Just like in the 1960s, there was a feeling of optimism for tomorrow, and excitement for the future, the end of history, peace seemed possible, democracy won, this was the thinking, the millennium was coming, the year 2000, we were living in the future. Where those in the space age looked ahead to a future in the stars, the 1990s imagined a virtual tomorrow. Cyber, virtual, these are cornerstones of 90s futurism. The internet was often presented as this three-dimensional space you could log into. It appeared like that in many films, especially when its future was considered. In reality, virtual reality, VR, was still very much in its early stages. Using CGI, virtual environments were created that people could navigate using headsets and controllers. Attempts were made to make this as immersive as possible. These were very ambitious, but also limited by the tech available. Still, this was the future, and much of the content or aesthetic is through that lens. Looking at computer animation from around this time, the 90s, you see a lot of flying cars, spaceships, futuristic or sci-fi cities. Like with what we saw in the 60s, much of this is up for interpretation. The technology was better, but still wouldn't allow for realistic depictions, so this stuff is still very abstract or expressive. Programs, like the Mind's Eye, which is what you've been seeing here, were compilations or collections of these short pieces of computer animation, all stitched together. Animation on its own has always taken a lot to produce, both in terms of financial cost and also the time required to make it. A feature-length computer animated movie wouldn't be realized until 1995's Toy Story, but even then, that was one of the biggest studios, Disney, so a lot of early CGI was short, produced for commercials or network bumpers, and then later would be edited into compilations like The Mind's Eye. They were a lot like music videos, sometimes fading in and out of each other like a mix, with not much in the way of an explicit story, though they often explored ideas like space and identity, humans' relationship with technology. With the huge advancements in communication technologies like we've already talked about, the internet, suddenly we were connecting with each other instantly, all around the world, at the click of a button. If you wanted to, you could step outside yourself and assume an online persona, choose your own identity, and these ideas inspired a lot of computer animated futures. One of the artists that we've mentioned before, whose work also appeared in The Mind's Eye, was Benny Tchaikovsky. In 1997, Tchaikovsky compiled several of his pieces into cyberspace with music by Peter Bernstein. Bernstein had produced music for shows like Tales from the Crypt. He also worked on Ghostbusters, apparently, and the made-for-TV Star Wars movies, The Ewok Adventures, Caravan of Courage. There are also a lot of trance and techno tracks, which go well with the visuals. Electronic music, EDM, was very popular around this time, late 80s, 90s. It sounded futuristic. A lot of this is based in pretty standard sci-fi stuff. There is a sort of spirituality to it as well, psychedelic, for lack of a better word. Humans' connection to nature and technology, what it means to be human, or not. What does all this technology mean? How does it change who we are? Again, similar to the 60s, the optimism of this tech, our progress, was undercut by concerns. The Y2K bug, what if all the computers stop working? What if this world we've made fails? Security concerns, how much can we really trust technology? Is being online safe? Should it really be this easy to communicate with each other? What does the 21st century really hold? We of course know that now, but looking back on this future, the run-up to the millennium, it feels like the last time there was widespread optimism for the future. Comfort can be found in it. I love revisiting this stuff. It's like going home. I'd happily expand on or revisit this topic, 90s futurism, Y2K futurism, again in the future, but that's going to do it for today. Let me know in the comments what you think. What are some of your memories of this time? If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, share, and again, if you have the means, please consider supporting us. You can get access to a ton of exclusive content and help keep all this going, patreon.com/pixelportraits. As always, thank you so much for your interest in this channel, and thanks for watching. See you in the future.